All right, cool. Everything should be running now. Streamlabs and or Restream. Streamlabs, Restream, and LinkedIn haven't been playing nice last week, but I think it's okay now. I got also like finally a hardwired connection where I'm set up instead of using the Wi-Fi, so hopefully that helps. Okay. Um, all right, well, I'll wait for a couple people to join. How are you? What are some fun Blake updates with what you got going on?
Overall, in general.
Yeah, overall in general, or like
Yeah.
something specific. Yeah, whatever's cool
Is
for
this
the
is this
community.
Blake and Gary talking, or is
This
this
is
going on for the community? No, I'm kidding.
yeah, yeah,
I'm kidding. I know. I know, man.
it's both. It's both. I want to know while I'm killing some time before we get started, but yeah, it's for the community. So if anyone happens to be
Yeah.
tuning in,
No,
yeah.
of course. Yeah. No, I think we're pretty excited about what's happening at GDC. The whole we created this collective called Anim Revolution, and so what it is, it's basically a bunch of hardware companies, software companies, and then us as the production company that is kind of gluing everything together and showing off what they can do within our workflow, and then the end results of it. So it's actual productions for it. GDC is just going to be fun because we will be doing a bunch of stuff live. We'll be showing off all aspects of our animation workflow, and it seems like people are just really excited to kind of see it. The more times that people see it, because people start to see some fun, interesting things that we're doing with the workflow, and they get to see a bunch of new characters. So we'll be showing off this one called Outpost, and Outpost is a this big like this big scene, kind of like in a snowy environment, almost looks like the Pacific Northwest, with really kind of like starry night sky, and it's these two soldiers that are kind of walking, and it's like retro future, can't really tell the time period, etc. Right? And all of a sudden, this giant monster comes over the hill, this mountain, like cliffside, and where it goes from there, it goes from there. So yeah, yeah.
Right on. How is this your first time going to GDC?
Yeah, personally, it's my first time. Yeah, yeah, and we'll have a booth, and yeah. So some of the partners there, and I think I've mentioned them to you before, but like, so Lenovo is a partner. AMD is one of the partners part of this. Then you have on the soft. Oh, and also on. So those are hardware. Another hardware is this company called Sense Labs, which is pretty cool. It's a tablet company. So it's what artists are using on a regular basis, and their tablets are really cool, nimble, and what's interesting about them is that they do listen to the artist community, and they like to implement into their products the feedback that they receive. Things that we've heard from our artists, and even the creative side, is that it gives a very like paper feeling, as you're using the tablet. So that's fun. And then what we want to do is trying to set up a little bit of these features for the live production aspect, so that when we're doing the shoot in front of everyone, they have these modules called quick keys, where it's hotkeys, but they're modularized, and you can just hit a button instead of being command or Windows and F, blah blah blah. You can just have this, and you can cycle through, and then there's a dial and a knob that you can also control functions. So it's like a slider function with that. But we want to actually take those and then integrate that into the Unreal Engine to then have some fun results from it too. So yeah,
That's cool. That sounds awesome. And yeah, just
yeah,
having more of that tactile feel has got to be huge. Like I'm not like the biggest illustrator. My background's in photography, but every now and then, yeah, futzing around with digital tools and having a little bit more of that sensation, that feel. It's huge, even for like total, like hobbyist nobody like me. So yeah, I can't imagine how like the
Yeah.
pros must feel having more of that going on. So hey, we got some fun friends hanging out with us. Boyne, always great to have you. Carl, nice to
Oh,
see
cool.
you. Carl, since you're a guest over here on the Start Mata platform, if you would like to use your microphone and camera to jump on stage to ask questions of Blake, you'll have to join us as a full-fledged member, but you can join as a supporter for free, 60 days. Just yeah, use the support her membership, and then it's included, so you don't have to use any codes or anything. In the meantime, feel free to use the text chat, and then everyone else that's watching on LinkedIn or Twitch or anywhere else, use text chat, ask questions. Let me know what I can do to represent your interests, your needs with Blake. With that, Blake, how would you like to introduce yourself? Go for it. Let's hear it.
Sure, sure. So, been doing a bunch of these, right? And they're always fun. And 8 to 5 startups is just the community overall. It's just always been, it's something precious, I feel, right? And meeting Gary and Alon, I don't know, over 10 years ago now, I feel, I don't know, something around there. It's been special, right? And growing up in the cusp of Conejo Valley area, right? But a lot of the time of my youth as well. When I saw this occurring, I thought it was such a needed aspect of the community because there's so much talent in the area that then also kind of being a sort of neighbor, if you will, of LA, there's a lot of overlap there, and having something to be supportive of everyone, is key. So with that, about me, let's see, studied socioeconomic theory, immediately out of school, basically had a highly influential, high net worth, high profile mentor. And so I started doing advisory work around his family office for his personal business dealings, and then also his larger company that his family is associated to. We're part of. So cut my teeth pretty quickly at a young buck, 23-year-old at the time. That's when really started, doing stuff there. Was able to see just impressive businesses around the world and just the operations of it. Then from there, was part of, had a stint at Apple, helping part of the initial stages of a business division where it was right when the Intel chip came out. It was pre-iPhone. I actually left the week the iPhone came out to go work at a nonprofit. Everyone always says, why did you go leave Apple in this prime heyday, upward trajectory? But had this opportunity with the nonprofit that was really fun to work with. But over there, it was basically transitioning companies from Windows-based machines over to Apple computers, which was a huge uphill battle because Windows just had complete market share. So that was interesting. Did some work in post-production workflow, friend's company, and helping a few of the business lines on that side of it. They're now a nationwide footprint of a company and pretty well regarded overall. At the time, they were the largest reseller of Avid in the world for like 25 years or 20 years running. And then got involved in venture capital side of things because I had startups that were interesting. The VC model that we would go with was more like a family office. So we would actually, instead of doing specific investments, because we didn't have to really worry about what the thesis was, we could actually identify companies that we thought would work well together in a grouping or an ecosystem for an RTO, which now is more like what a SPAC is. But so reverse takeover, a publicly traded company, and then get them all into that umbrella to then kind of leverage the networks and leverage what the companies are to further propel them into really formulating true business, and not just like an individual, let's call it widget, if you will. So did a bunch of stuff there. Then got into a bunch of fintech. That turned into DeFi, blockchain, because that sort of come aboard. People had me speaking and talking about blockchain at conferences and things like that all over. I was part of a bunch of companies or people that have me advise them and kind of help to craft their white paper. Some of it was ghostwriting, some of it my name was on. But what I was seeing is that there was a tremendous capability of what blockchain could offer. And it really was kind of sitting within a bunch of other technologies out there and how it can truly be unlocking for things. And then what I felt was really impressive, right, is that you had this ability where you can lower barriers of entry and really tap into the amazing talent that's around the world and how to give access and unlock that, and then further take the people that might not have those opportunities and see where they can go with it. Then transitioned essentially back to doing more of the VC investment side of things. And then around this time, reconnected with an old, very good friend from growing up. And he comes from the animation background. And then we developed and created an entire workflow that kind of changes animation industry and business, where instead of it being a linear process, we're going from step to make any changes along the process, and because you're going from step to step to step, you have to go all the way back, almost all the way back to the beginning to make any changes and continue back through the process. Where this, what we're doing is that you're not throwing anything away unless it is just completely junk, which can happen, but it's an iterative process, so everything is actually built upon, and we're making edits in live, and it's unlocking a tremendous ability for transmedia, which has always been sort of like where entertainment and IP have wanted to go, but we're able to make that much more accessible. There's a bunch of other sound bites too with it, where take, for example, $200 million Pixar, Disney's, really, really high quality level of movie. We can do that now in unlocking true independent animation for about $10 to $15 million, while still hitting extremely high quality. Yeah. And I guess part of that too is that we kind of make failure cheaper, and failures is where you find the true gold, because it tells you what you don't want and what you do want along that process. So, yeah.
Love it, and it's super exciting. And before or while we wait for Boyan or Carl to share some questions or other questions that pop up on other platforms that we're streaming on, there's a couple things that you were sharing earlier about going to GDC, first time for yourself, but with your company and different partners that you have, and then just the formation of IEL with your longtime friend. There's a couple different ways to dig into all these things that I think is going to be really helpful for the community to hear about, and I guess to start with the easier one, I think, is the conference coming up. So a lot of founders, they see conferences and other types of conventions, big events, or I guess any size event, big and small, as a great opportunity to, one, build their brand, establish the brand in the community, attract potential customers or strategic partners, or other interests from other possible parties. And there's also the main goal of making more sales. So I'm curious, for you and your team going to GDC, how are you approaching setting the goals for your time at that conference, and what does it look like in terms of the pre-production that goes into that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's really good, Gary. What's interesting with GDC, right, is that we're there as basically our collective, and we're supporting one of the companies, which is Jolly Research, amazing technology, and what their bread and butter is the gaming industry, right? And because of it, in this collective, we're like, hey, how do we all support, people's individual endeavors that come along with this? And that's essentially why we're there, right? We do see it as a tremendous opportunity. It's with gaming folks, and what we're doing is very complementary to what's going on over there. We also see it what's happened with Studio Fortiche and Riot Games, where they were able to translate an IP into an animation that's stunning, and the amazing awards behind it, the teams and the story that it was created upon, right? How do you translate a game to a narrative story that is for, let's call it the traditional media, traditional entertainment, being on a screen, being on TV. And they did it so well, right? And I think that there's a lot of desire out there for a lot of these other game companies that might not be multi-billion dollar size companies, but do substantially well, where they want to be able to translate their IP into doing so much more, kind of that transmedia approach, right? How do you take your story and engage on other media platforms like social media, for example? How do you engage audiences? Because that's really what it comes down to, is that everyone is approaching, right, an audience, and that's the community, and getting the community to work together, right, to then or just activating the community and engaging with the community to then result in more gameplay, right, that comes off of it. It is specifically in this sense because it's for gaming, right? But this can also be you can pull these, like, let's just call it nuggets from the story for almost anything too, right? Because it's engaging with community, and then having that a way for that, something special, right, that people want to tap into, that's compelling, right? But going back to your original question around why is GDC so great and what are we looking forward to, is that we are displaying and showing off how individual companies can actually work together and then create an entire production, right? So when it comes down to what did we do, right, to prepare for GDC, tons of meetings, right? We do weekly meetings and everything like that, starting 3 months ago, if you will, leading up to it. We were out there in Austin in January, which was launching essentially a partner stage there in Austin. These guys, Trey Vista and House of Moves, are set up there. And so we did an entire live production and showing off what what people are going to be seeing, or one of the things that people are seeing, called Outpost, that's there. It's directed by this guy, Mark Bristol. Mark Bristol has been part of a whole bunch of games in the space. He's also a storyboard artist for the Mission Impossible movies, which is pretty cool. So that'll just be fun, right? So all the preparation, let's just call it, I would say collectively, a couple thousand hours is being put into just to create the demonstration that people are going to be seeing. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. What
Yeah.
specific goals, I guess, do you guys have leaving GDC? Like, is it to sell the technology to more companies that are in need of that? So, like these gaming companies are looking to turn their IP, their lore, into new types of media. Is it looking for more strategic partners like these hardware companies, or technology companies that you'd be working with to push your technology further and innovation? Is it some other type of thing? Because there's a lot of different opportunities when you're at a convention. How are you? What are the goals, and how are you determining the priority of those goals, I guess, is the bigger kind of question I'm looking for. And I think it's really important for people in the community to be aware of the methodology they're utilizing when they're putting together strategies and enacting plans to make those strategies come to life. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your methodology and approach to these things.
Yeah. Again, what the real part of the conference that really kind of propelled us there, right, is because we're very supportive of our partners in this relationship of this collective of Anima Revolution, right? And with it is that those partners are some of them are selling their software and products in a way where they want to show it off and get in front of more people, right? Where that's not necessarily what we're doing, right? Because we do create our own IP, right? We do co-productions with people, and there is a realm in there where it's services basis through, um, executing on their goals and leveraging our system to make it compelling and much more efficient, and evangelizing people, if you will, right? So our individual goals, and then there's a collective goals that's there in general. So on an individual level, right, it is, yes, meeting people, right, evangelizing people and so that they do see live in person in front of them what the potential is there and the capabilities that are there, because there's a lot of it is seeing to believe, because you can talk about, I can sit here and talk about, hey, here's this workflow, etc. And we started doing these demonstrations that were actual live productions, and we invited people over to the studio that we're doing it at, so they can see it. So that's essentially what we're doing, is that we're taking that essence of it, bringing it on the road, so then people can view it and then actually apply their own industry experience and knowledge to it, to then discover and explore with what to do, in terms of compelling storytelling, right? So everyone is in the end. This sounds vague in explanation, but because everyone has their own interests and desires and just own needs, right? We want to be able to have conversations that are compelling around that, so they can, yeah, we can just explore the opportunities that are there, right? So at the end of it, it'd be wonderful to be having, fruitful conversations with translating and taking IP from the gaming world into, linear entertainment, and then as well as other methods to kind of unlock the transmedia components of that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. And you're touching on a couple things that come up often in regards to just like the earliest stages of customer discovery, customer research, customer validation, and it's mostly about having these in-depth conversations to learn about their perspective, their workflows, their ambitions, what they're trying to accomplish, challenges, all these different elements involved in their lives that you are trying to insert yourself into, and in a lot of ways replace something that they're already doing with your offering, right? And I'm curious how much of these conversations, these meetings they've had with these partners, to kind of work with them to understand their perspective has played into the planning of what you're choosing to demonstrate to others at the convention. Was there recurring themes that came out from these different conversations with your partners that you're working with as part of the collective that kind of like brought to the forefront, oh, these are like the top 3 things we should showcase, during the event? Or like how do these conversations really impact and influence your plan for what you're going to be doing, I guess?
Yeah, yeah, and it's because essentially what you're bringing up is that everyone has these different objectives. So how does a collective come together to make one or different versions of one, right? Demonstration or display of it all, right? And like differing opinions, differing thoughts, right? So essentially, the way that we approach it is that our technology partners do amazing work, do amazing stuff, right? And it's what happens. We use this analogy of it. It's like you can take me, right? I semi know how to drive cars aggressively, right? I've done track days and yada yada stuff, right? But I'm not a professional car racer, right? I can go jump into a car and drive it very fast, right? But then you put in someone who is literally trained, open wheel driver, F1 driver, whatever, the big, if you will, from you know, um, uh, and they're going to do amazing things that the car might not even be meant to do, right? And so, what is it when you take a bunch of these systems and give it to these race car drivers and it goes gangbusters, right? It is amazing. It's like talent beyond, right? Because, people involved have a bunch of, what we call hardware, right? Awards that they've gotten from very, you know, impressive institutions, that give out the awards in entertainment out there. But what we decided to do is really just look at, so one of our partners, Ozone Story Tech, they do amazing rigging, right? Rigging for animation. A lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I don't want to be assumptive, but many people don't know that rigging is extremely important, because that's when you get the actual facial movements and the body movements and like that. If you have a bad rig, it looks really junky, and you get stuff like, there's been some movies out there that have not looked great because of their bad rigs, right? It's the bones, it's the muscles, it's all of that aspect of taking a very, very compelling model and then getting it into the movement of it all. So essentially, what we're doing is that we're showing off various characters with their rigs integrated into it and how amazing they look, right? But you can talk about rigging for as long a period as possible, or they can just see it in front of them and being like, oh, that's really cool. It's kind of like Michael Jordan's, right? Or Jordan's, right? Everyone wanted to be like Mike. They saw Mike jumping from the free throw line and doing a slam dunk, be like, every 6-year-old kid, 10-year-old kid, they're like, I want to do that one day. And then they go buy Michael Jordan's. They buy the Jordans, they put the shoes on, they realize that they can only jump like 6 inches off the ground, right? But it's a feeling of it. And one of our hardware partners, they actually said, they're like, yeah, in a conference, we can have a chip sitting in a box that's in front of everyone, and it's cool, but there's only probably a few people that actually want to look at that chip, that come to that conference. What they want to see is what can be done with it, which is what you guys are doing on screen, right? So that's the philosophy behind it. As I said, Jolly Research, one of the companies that's really driving this, the GDC aspect forward, because this is their playground in gaming. They do facial animation, speech to facial animation through really cool modeling. Crazy research that they've done. It was a PhD thesis that would turn into an entire productized company now, and they're doing quite well. They've been part of some amazing gaming content games that are out there. They're integrated into quite a lot. But so we're like, cool, let's take this, right, and let's put it into all the characters that we're going to be showing off. They can do multiple languages too, and it can do even like cultural nuances of languages. So we're going to be showing that stuff off. And then again, an example of like Sense Lab, where they have their amazing tablets. We actually have it integrated into our entire workflow, where in live production, we're able to actually take a snapshot, then start to do notes over it and doing it live and iterate off of it while we're even on set, because we do motion capture. So that's like repurposing someone's tools and showing off all these ways to do it. And that came to it from having professionals literally on stage with a tablet next to them being like, wait, what if we just move this over here? Let's do this with it. And you have this creativity that comes from it. Same thing with the quick keys, right? We're like, how can we make some fun things where it's like, you can just dial this knob like this and change the time of day in the scene. Cool. Let's make that work, right? So that's a lot of where it comes from. So
No,
yeah.
I love it. And it's great because it's so collaborative, and it's again rooted in these conversations and learning the intimate details of what these different partners are doing, and the way they're doing it, the workflows, and again what they're prioritizing, so you can take all that information and connect with the larger community that you're going to be in front of, but at the same time make them again feel special and like a real partner, a true partner. It's all, yeah, it's really great. And the other thing that you're really touching on that's so important is showing versus telling, and this comes up all the time when we're doing the like pitch deck reviews or landing page reviews, where a person is trying to explain what their product is and what it does and what it's like to experience it. And the majority of their content, overwhelming majority, like 90% of that content, is text, it's copy, which
Mm-hmm.
isn't showing you anything. It's just telling you, oh, it's gonna do this, right? Just like you brought up as like, you know, having a conversation with someone. Everyone's imagination is coming up with a completely different outcome, and that same person, depending on the hour of the day and what just happened, different experiences, it could be drastically different what they're imagining. So the ability to show people instead of just telling them is so critically important. And I really appreciate you, you know, touching on that and bringing that up, and, you know, giving all these wonderful examples of what you're going to be doing at the convention too. Um, yeah, so let's touch on, you know, Carl Boyne. Yeah, if anything's come up you want to ask about, again, use the chat. Raise your hand if you want to come up and ask a question using your camera, microphone. Camera is optional. Anyone else that's watching, tuning in, same deal. Drop some questions in the chat. In the meantime, I'll keep you know, interviewing you, man, because I love it.
Yeah.
Something that I think is
Yeah.
also really interesting is the founder journey, right? Like, how many companies have you been a co-founder or founder of to this point in your life?
Um, let's see. That it kind of depends, right? Because some of them I was part of, like on an advisory level, right? Some of them wanted more involved, right? But I would say probably about like 5 or 6 actual companies that true founder side. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so with those 5 to 6, how many of those stemmed from your own ambition? Like, oh, I've got an idea. I want to pursue this.
Let's go a good half, right? So let's go with like 3 of them have
Okay.
been like truly just this is what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I'm going
yeah.
somewhere with all
Like
this.
for example, yeah, yeah. Do you want me to give an example of one of the of those companies, or should it just
Yeah.
be?
No, yeah, I'd
Yeah,
love that. I would love that. Yeah. And
yeah,
also for further context, how long ago was it? Like how many years back from, let's say, or IEL like formation?
yeah. So as you know, like I've gone between founder and VC investment, PE, right, et cetera, back and forth, right. My initial, kind of, thing I was doing, right, is underneath my mentor. That was more on investment side and strategy and understanding, that side. But yeah, so one company I did through all my travels and stuff like that, I was over there in Asia and I grabbed a bottle of wine because we were going to do a dinner and yada yada, and it was at someone's home, and I saw it and I'm like, this is like, I don't know, it was $120 for a bottle that you would get at Ralph's locally here, right, for like $20, we'll say, right, and I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And so I kind of started to explore. This is a long time ago, so research was difficult around it, right, and understanding and navigating, etc. And so basically created a wine, spirits, and beer distribution company, really kind of focusing on getting product into Asia, right, but pulling it from everywhere in the world where they made some sort of beverage, if you will. We were also doing sparkling, non-alcoholic stuff too. Um, but yeah, so it's like identifying a need, right? Identifying the needs, and then also how to navigate and penetrate a market that had a lot of walls up around it, because of the interests of major players that were out there, and how to identify yourself to sort of be a boutique, right, and do smaller offerings, right, where you're not necessarily making a ton of noise with the other majors that are there, and that was a lot of fun. So yeah.
I so this one sounds very ambitious because of these different barriers to entry that are in place, and the different logistical challenges that exist in regards to, you know, different international markets and everything that comes with that. So just like as like an earlier, you know, founder on this journey, that itself is a pretty ambitious like endeavor to take on. Now comparing that to IEL, which
Mm-hmm.
seems extremely ambitious. I'm curious, like, if you were to make the comparison between then and now as a founder, how much has the journey changed in regards to your ability to assess and manage those risks, those challenges, and feel more confident in being able to tackle them without without getting too delusional about that? Because I know, early founders, it's really hard for them because they lack the experience, right, to really understand where confidence and delusion are kind of blurring these lines, right? They're like, oh, if I just believe, I can do anything, right? But there's hard limitations that exist for pretty much everyone, depending on who they are and their situation and relationships and all these things. But I'm just curious, like, between yourself and these two different, like, journeys, how much has changed in that regard? And then I want to ask some follow-ups. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think something that you said was interesting, right? Because I think there was an interview recently, and I'm not gonna do the quote by any means, right? But the gist of what was said is that so was Jensen about Nvidia, right? And everyone, fanboying over, over what he's up to now, right? He's doing amazing stuff, and he's like, if I knew the journey that I had to go on to make this company what it is, I would never have gone on the journey, right? And it's like, you're talking to this person who is like epitome of successful, to idolize, like guy's a genius, right? With what he's done, and him saying I would never have done this if I knew what I was getting myself into. I think that's very telling, right? And I think that's what ends up happening a lot of times. When starting IEL, we were going down a very specific pathway, right? And all of a sudden, we realized that what we had at our fingertips was a lot more, and so it wasn't that we had the imposter syndrome or imposter complex, right, going on. It was that we were like, wait, there's so many amazing people that are out there in this industry, and we actually, through conversation and hearing time and time again from all these people, wait, you have something here that is more than what you're saying. Actually, they encouraged us, and these were amazing professionals that we work with, right? And they're saying, keep pushing, like you're right there, like keep going, and it turned into what is now sounds like a huge endeavor. But we were not setting out to do this huge endeavor in the very beginning. We're like, here's a little slice that I think that we can do really, really well over here, right? And it comes from the pedigree, the relationships, the contacts, and essentially the work of our lives up to this point, of a network as well. And also people being like, I've seen the previous work that you guys have done, right? As individuals, as a company, or as together, right? And then them being like, wait, this is amazing. Then all of a sudden, there's been instances in it where standing there with a very high experienced technical person saying, hey, I'm learning stuff from you right now, where in my mind I'm like, wait, no, you're the person who knows everything in the world, basically, right, in this realm. And they're like, no, we're learning right now, thank you for the notes, basically, right? Because they're like, we never thought that this was had a capability. So it's like there's that element, right? Going back to the wine, spirits, beer, and non-alcoholic sparkling beverages and stuff like that we were doing there. I think that's one of the ones where it's like, if I knew what I had to do to go through it, right? At the time, like I was 28, I think, when that company started, and I knew that I had a network and I knew people, and I'm like, all right, know in imports, right? Who do I know in wine? Who do I know here? And I literally just started making calls, driving places, going places, flying places, etc. And then all of a sudden, after a tremendous amount of work and in time putting into it, one friend and one good contact who's been instrumental in other stuff in my in my career later on after it. He's like, well, what if I gave you access to this amazing wine portfolio that was super high end stuff, right? It was a collection of all these like vaults and stuff like that was worth about $400 million in wine, right? Because we're talking about super high level. Never sold any of it, but it was also kind of one of those things where it's like, oh my god, this is amazing because you are doing like because you have access to this portfolio, it also legitimizes the rest of the things that you're doing too, right? Because high volume wine is not in that same realm as Chateau Lafite, Chateau Margaux, Haut-Brion, etc. Right? Yeah. So
No, yeah, I love it, and like again, it's touching on even more like recurring themes that we see in a lot of these office hours and everything, and like using your friend's collection to kind of immediately jumpstart that credibility with what you're able to bring to the table to where you're distributing and where you're bringing your I guess different relationships too, right? I'm curious too, because you touched on this, how back then that journey, you wouldn't have done it knowing what you know now, and how that's like a common thing. But in some of my conversations I have with a lot of founders that touch on that, what kind of comes up is how it was a lot harder, and they ended up making a lot of sacrifices to different areas of their life, mostly because of the lack of resources and lack of understanding and experience they had at the time. And they felt like they had to go above and beyond to extreme degrees and in order to take on those challenges. I'm curious, again, doing these comparisons between then and now, if you were to kind of reverse the two ventures, if you were to have done IEL then and kick butt with it, and then decided to do this wine thing because you got a passion for it and you see an opportunity, you want to have some fun with this, how different would that journey be today, given the experience you have now, ignoring wine distribution experience, but just overall entrepreneurship and experience with relationships and all these different things and managing all this? Like, how different would that be? Like, would you see yourself making the same types of sacrifices, the same sort of like degree of work ethic, like boundaries, like all these different elements? Like, how much would change?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, Gary. It's like what I see with it is that every company, its timing is everything, right? Like if certain companies that are extremely successful started a year sooner or a year later, they probably would have failed, right? There's the whole thing of the first soldiers get the spear, right? Where sometimes it's like there's companies that have to how to run the gambit, right? How to go through the gauntlet, right? And do the things that they did to pave the way for another company, right? I don't see that with Facebook wouldn't be here today without my or Friendster, right? And all the other 100 social media apps that were created in that time frame. But those are the two that people talk about because they were the most successful-ish before Facebook even happened, right? Even Facebook has evolved and it's a pivots and everything like that. If someone said, yeah, they're going to be this VR, AR, glasses, like all these things of like when they started out being you were liking and poking people when Facebook first came out, right? You were sending messages because, oh wait, you go to the same college as I did. Like,
dude,
the evolution of this company is insane.
I completely forgot about the poking until you just said that.
Right?
I was like, wait a second, that was a thing. That's so silly.
And I think you can still poke
Yeah.
on Facebook, right?
God,
Like,
who knows?
you still can. I think I should go to it. I haven't logged in for a while, but I should go just poke a whole bunch of random friends and be like, "What are you doing right now, man?" But all to be said, right? It's like that's what Facebook is. Who would have thought that they would be acquiring these companies and doing all of these things and yada yada today, right? And same thing. IEL started out when, you know, back then when I was 28. If you took that exact year, the technology had to advance to where it is today to be able to do the things that we're doing today too, right? You know, so there's that. Would I be able to do what was happening with wine and spirits and beer and everything like that, you know, from, you know, whatever, however many years ago, 15 plus years ago, yeah, about that, you know, 15 years ago to what's is happening there today? No, because like you know, the travels that I do still to Asia, you know, and I see it's a completely different landscape, right? You know, it used to be a couple, you know, types of whiskey that were on shelves, and now you have huge saturation and people just owning essentially these distribution networks that they're putting it into various provinces, if it's China, right, or whatever the navigation of the various countries that are out there too. So yeah.
I like this because there's a couple elements that are really good again to remind people of, and yeah, the journey, it's different for everyone and it's going to be difficult regardless. There's so many different moving parts and uncertainty, so much uncertainty because you're making a lot of assumptions in regards to, you know, market, customer, all the different areas in the operations and legal and all kinds of stuff, and it takes a lot to, yeah, put those things forward and be brave and test them and see what happens and manage all your resources and relationships so you can keep going. And that's what's wonderful about lean startup methodology or lean methodology in you know general, is learning how to manage those risks and run those experiments in a way that is optimizing for your ability to learn and put those lessons into action when you iterate or optimize or pivot as necessary. And that's kind of cool too in regards to, like, you know, what you've mentioned a few times with IEL in regards to it being an iterative process. I think that's beautiful. The other thing that I'm, you know, that you called attention to earlier with IEL was how you're able to leverage your existing relationships and the past successes that you've had, either, you know, as a like a specialist in a certain field, or working together with the same people on different projects, and being able to demonstrate the quality of character and the quality of work. And in a lot of ways, I say this often, again, your methodology for assessing risk, managing risk, and taking the steps necessary to get shit done and do that in a collective, calm, calculated manner. Um, that too, I'm curious, you know, like just how much of that, those relationships and that past demonstration, do you think played a role in IEL being able to get off the ground? Because this, again, it's extremely ambitious, and even though it didn't start ambitious, which again is a very important thing to call attention to, the MVP, right? Having a singular focus, and then allowing it to, as opportunity shows itself and within your limitations, iterate and move towards those, that, you know, larger kind of scale project. But even as like that MVP, it's still very ambitious. So just how critical were those relationships and past actions that you've been able to demonstrate to people in the community?
Yeah, I mean it's really interesting. So like one thing that you were kind of talking about, right, is really around like a difference between timing, right? Where now you have so much data everywhere, right? You have so much information, right? And that can be bad data and it can be amazing data, right? But then it's also like, how do you take that data, then apply it to what you're doing and trying to do, right? And I say this all the time, where don't replicate someone else's journey and pathway to get them to where they're successful, right? Because they couldn't even repeat that themselves. And it's not to dismiss their accomplishments, it's just the reality of it, right? And it's understanding just what goes into play at stake with it. And there's a lot of right place, right time, a lot of maneuverability, being malleable, being flexible, et cetera, to be able to, go along with the conditions that are out there. And I think what's been interesting is that through my experience, I've gained a lot more close confidants, right? That I can go to immediately to kind of battle test in a very protected way, almost like a market research kind of route, but not really, but really having experts in different fields that can be like, hey, here's a way to look at this. Have you looked at it this way? Have you looked at it that way? Where it's not necessarily like, you know, it's just a little bit of time on their side because you've also reciprocated and helped them with your experiences and stuff like that, right? So I think that's an interesting aspect of that you're getting towards, right? That's been instrumental, and it's also just given the fact that there is so much more data out there. How do you deal with like that um, processing or just wading through the muck, right? And then how does it then apply to you? And how do you take the right advice? Because I think I've said this on a previous one. I could be telling you something, and it's only based off the information that I understand and know about what you've either shared with me or what my assumptions are, right? And that can completely change to being the opposite of that advice, given another piece of information that I wasn't privy to or understood or knew that was going on with X company, right? Um, Another aspect going from 15 years ago to today is that going through and advising all the companies that I have in a formal or informal way, seeing all these companies through investment flow and everything like that, and seeing what's going on, is that I turn more towards to where I used to be like, okay, we need 500K to get this MVP done because that's how much the programmers are going to be, yada yada. And I turn to it now. It's what can we do for virtually nothing, right? What can we do to get something out there that is a product, if it is a product, right? Or whatever needs to be out there to market in an MVP, the battle testing sense, whatever needs to occur overall. And that is to me what a lot of investors are looking at when they're doing investment. If you come and you're like, hey, I have this idea and it's wonderful, it's great, that's cool, but there's a lot of people with ideas. If you could get it to a certain point with virtually nothing, right? Or whatever mechanisms are that you use that tells a story of overcoming adversity and obstacles, et cetera, that are in front of you, that is much more compelling because that means that investors like this person's going to figure it out without me telling them, or like, sorry, this person's going to figure it out without my money, with my money or without my money. And I want to be invested in this so that I can get the benefit of their success that they're on this journey for, right? And to make it even longer winded and longer in the tooth, right? That is one of those things too, of understanding that that there is a route to go where you need to just navigate what investors are interested in and what is going on in the marketplace, and knowing economic factors of, say, right now high interest rates means money is much more expensive, meaning investments are much lower. And so what do you do when there's less investment going on out there? You build. And that's this other aspect to it, which is if you're able to continue things and really push the pace where someone can tell that if they don't jump on the train that you're on, they're going to get left behind because you're just continuing to progress. If you're always showing progress, that is music to any investors, anyone who's buying your product, anyone that's out there. They're like, these people are doing something that's special and different, and they're not waiting for anything or anyone. So
Yeah, and like those elements also go back to, again, just demonstrating the quality of character that you have as a business leader, right? As a team leader, and you're getting things done. You have a methodology that you can speak to, you can demonstrate to them. And like you said, it's like for an investor when they're looking at all these different deals that are coming across their plate, what are they doing to pick which one to bet on, right? It's typically the one that has the most potential and the least amount of risk, right? Am I wrong with that?
No,
Yeah.
spot on.
All
That's
right.
exactly it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And so yeah, what you've just described and explained is very much how to do that. And
yeah.
yeah, a lot of founders too, they rush in a lot of different areas, and one of them again is pitching to investors. They like you brought up, they have a great idea. Okay, well, great ideas don't mean anything. Where's the proof that it is a great idea? Where's the validation it's a great idea? And yeah, if you're able to get things done without investors and find a way to enter the market, validate some of those core assumptions, you're going to be ahead of most of the people that are, pitching to these investors already. We're coming up
Mm-hmm.
on time. Last chance for throw in some questions. I know, we've been hanging out with Carl and Boyan, and hopefully, yeah, the two of you have been enjoying this conversation and getting some good insights from everything. But yeah, if you got a question, now's the time. Throw it in. Raise your hand, whatever you got. Yeah, Blake, while we wait, again, this has been amazing. I love the insights and hearing about your experience and the growth that you've been having with IEL. And yeah, the conference should be a total blast. Are you going to be dressing up? You going to be cosplaying?
No. It'll be our Anim Revolution, our GDC T-shirts that we'll be rocking there. It will be fun too. On Wednesday, Mark Andrews, who we work with, right? He's involved in all of our projects actually. He'll be coming over there on Wednesday, kind of doing some stuff on stage it's not on a stage. It's in the volume, in the mocap volume and stuff there. No, it's just going to be a blast, and always, Gary, I appreciate, the community that's here, what's happening, what you're doing on a regular basis. It's amazing, and it's interesting, right? Because, I'll make a pitch for Craig Silverstein, right? Because he's going to be doing office hours coming up, right? We're getting involved in what he's up to around business intelligence and reporting and systems like that. And going back to what some of those things that I was saying, where there's tons of information, tons of data out there, and how to do and the tools that are there to do it. What we have going on there is so compelling and so interesting. I feel is because it becomes extremely dangerous if you have tools that can take data and do remarkable things with for strategic planning and just the trajectory of a company, to making sure that what I feel is that, we used to talk about, we still do, but we talk about smart money and dumb money, right? This can actually make dumb money smart money because of the information that you're getting out of this. So that's kind of a little soundbite on that. But overall, I think things are exciting times in general, right? There's a lot more potential for maximizing ROI with doing with smaller teams now, and we're on this frontier. We'll see where it goes from now. So yeah.
I love it. It's exciting. It's fun. Yeah, Craig's amazing. It's been really fun getting back into the community. Actually, it's been close to 2 years, but we've been ramping up activity so much since coming back after the
Yep.
pandemic. And yeah, having you involved and Craig and Boyne and some others has just been like, for me, like personally, just like the most amazing therapeutic thing after such a long time, just being kind of like isolated. And yeah, I'm super excited. I'm going to be launching our peer support groups later this week. I'll keep you in the loop for that. Me and Alon, we're going
Yep.
to build out the venture network for Southern California, and we're going to be doing a little bit of
Nice.
a twist on things. So I don't know how many meetings you've gone to, like little talks with different like investment groups where they have a panel and they kind of touch on, the gaps in the ecosystem here, and they kind of talk about how companies need to go to Silicon Valley or New York or maybe Boulder to get certain funding because that's where the biggest VCs are. And they just mention those things, but there's never any follow up in regards to leadership and how we can address those challenges that exist here in the like greater Los Angeles, Southern California ecosystem. So we're going to do a lot more work to poll these people and learn about what's going on from the investment side of things, and try to pull resources and get the government involved so they can help out and just make it easier for business founders and the people that live and work here to stay here and not have to worry about chasing money somewhere else. So yeah, I'm really excited
Yeah.
about that, and I'll loop you in. I'm gonna post a couple of links in the chat for anyone that's interested. And as you know, and I've mentioned to a couple of people, yeah, I joined Founders Boost, their accelerator program based in Glendale. I'm really excited about that. So any startup founders that are early stage, especially B2B companies, reach out to me. Let me know, Blake, if you got any people you want to send my way. I'd love to
Of
meet
course.
them. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Founders Boost is great and what they're doing over there, right? You
yeah.
know, it's I've been seeing the trajectory because I've had people involved there. It's great, and so excited that you're participating there too. So it's fun. It's fun, man. Yeah.
Deeply appreciate that. Yeah, they've been doing great work, so I'm really excited to be able to help out and leverage a bunch of what I've got over here to make them a little bit more impactful too. Okay, well, we had a shy group this time, but thank you, Boyne. Thank you, Carl, for joining us and being a part of this. Don't be shy about jumping in the forums, ask any questions, make any suggestions if you have for Blake coming back or other mentors you'd like to see. Blake, you're amazing. Thank you for all the kind words and encouragement. And yeah, you're a big reason why I was able to have the confidence to accept that role with Founders Boost too. So thank you so much for just being an awesome mentor and friend. So
No thanks even needed, man. You're just awesome. You know, it's just you're doing good work. You know, and you go on a path that not many people would, and so it's cool. Yeah, anything for you, man. So yeah,
heck yeah, cool. All right, I appreciate it. All right,
awesome. See
that's
y'all.
it. That's it. See ya. Take care. Have a good week. Bye, Blake. Thank you.